Harini?
Yeah, can we start?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a brief class mainly covering the Yajnavalkya Smriti from the point of view of the exam. Okay. So I have just made a long essay kind of a thing, giving us info about general info about Yajnavalkya Smriti and particular chapters that is there in the syllabus. So this can be used for the essay questions. Following that, we have actually made a list of all the shlokas which was asked in the previous years as quotations, sandarbha questions. So that also will be explained along with it. Okay. So Yajnavalkya Smriti. Basically, the literature, ancient Indian literature, can be categorized very broadly into two types, Shruti and Smriti. We are very familiar with these words. Shruti is basically the literature of revelation. That is, Shruti. The word itself means something that has been heard. So the enlightened seers, the sages in those days, they heard some noise or sound in the environment from the space or whatever. So that is what was documented later as Vedas. Okay, so this something that was heard, which was not written down by anybody, but it was actually heard and then documented later, was belongs to the category of Shruti, or the literature of revelation. And we don't know how old it is because it has come down from an unknown past. It has been transmitted across the generation by hearing and reciting. The guru will teach the students will then carry it forward to the next generation, and so on and so forth. It was done. Much later, people thought it was necessary to write it down because memory, etc., was fading and they were losing a lot of stuff. So later they started to document, and what we have today is the documented Veda. So Shruti, literature of revelation, unknown past, Apaurushaya is what we call it. Then Smriti, on the other hand, is something that was composed by enlightened seers. They did it out of memory, basically. So what they heard, what they learned from the Vedas, was later again given a new form. It was either they made a different category, or they collected stuff from all sources from the different Vedas, and then they made a new text with the basic source that they had heard. So this was done out of memory. It was basically written by human beings out of memory. Since it was out of memory, these are called smritis. Okay. Now, amongst the six Vedangas, Kalpa is one. Okay. Kalpa is again divided into three: Shrauta Sutra, Grihya Sutra, and Dharma Sutra. Shrauta Sutra, it basically deals with the religious rituals. Grihya Sutra deals with the domestic rituals like Upanayana or wedding ceremonies, etc. And Dharma Sutra is the main law, is about mainly about the laws which govern the civic life. There have been various treatises that have been composed on the subject of Dharma Sutras, and some of the examples are Gautama Dharma Sutra, Apastamba Dharma Sutra, Bhaudayana Dharma Sutra, Harita Dharma Sutra, etc. I have taken the liberty of just typing DS here. I hope it is quite clear. It just refers to Dharma Sutra. Okay, so these are the examples of Dharma Sutra. Then, moving on, Smriti, the word, as I told you, it is written out of memory. It was written by human beings only, composed by enlightened seers. It was basically done to guide the mankind in all walks of life. Since it covered about the basic laws of human society, about the civic code of conduct, so every aspect of life was covered in it. What was said, the set of rules, the do's and don'ts, the fundamental rights, the fundamental duties actually. So all these were mentioned in the Smriti. Now, Smriti can be understood in two ways. Very wide classification. Anything that does not come under the purview of Veda, all the non-Vedic works can be taken as Smriti. So this could include even your Panini's grammar or Shrotagrahya Dharma Sutras, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, the works of Manu, Yajnavalkya, etc. Whatever Smriti that we are studying now, all this can come under Smriti. But in a very narrower sense, or to be more precise and concise, it only includes the Dharma Sutra. As I told you, the law and the civil code of conduct. So that is the main subject of a Smriti. Now, what is Dharma? This is a highly debated, this one nobody has been able to give a proper definition of Dharma so far. They say it is very difficult to define Dharma, but Dharma is the main theme and the soul of Smriti. Having tried, many people have actually come to a conclusion, and this is the closest definition that they have been able to provide. Dharma can be understood as the privileges, the duties, and the obligation of a man, standard of conduct as a member of the Aryan community. So, if a person has to be accepted as a member of the Aryan community, he has certain duties and obligations which he needs to perform. Once he does those duties and obligations, he will get some privileges for being the member of the Aryan community. And apart from the community aspect, there is also the Varna aspect. We know the 4 Varnas. So, as a Brahmana, as a Kshatriya, or a Vaishya, or a Shudra, he has certain duties and obligations. So that is also mentioned here, and also the stages of life. Whether he is a Brahmachari, or a Grihastha, or a Vanaprastha, or a Sannyasi, in these 4 stages of life, whatever is the duty, obligation, etc., again the same things, these things have been covered, these things have been defined, these things have been used as parameters to define the Dharma. Okay. Now, it can be understood as a synonym of law in modern times. What we say, act according to your Dharma. So we can say that it is something like a legal aspect, not exactly in terms of Indian Penal Code and all that, but you can understand that what is need to be done, what is right, what is wrong, the strict rules that states. So this can be understood as the Dharma. Okay. Now, it includes one's duties and social, religious, legal, political, and ethical obligations of a man. So in those days, it is very clear that the society was very, I mean, they had a very forward thinking. They had to incorporate all these perspectives while actually writing a work on the Dharma Shastra itself. So it was not just the social aspect or the religious aspect, but the legal, political, as well as the ethical obligations of a man were taken into consideration while writing the Dharma Shastra. Now, Dharma is said to be the king of kings, okay, and it is far more rigid than the king. The king himself may be a little, what do you say, soft-hearted, and he may excuse you for a certain mistake that has been committed. But Dharma will never do that. Dharma has only one say. It is either wrong or right. There is no midway in Dharma. You cannot say, okay, it can be accepted in this case. No, such midways don't exist in case of Dharma. It is always right or wrong. There are only 2 perspectives, so it is far more rigid than a king. Now, Dharma, it is used to guide an individual as well as the communities as a whole. So, as we said, the social obligations. So, when we talk of social obligations, we are talking of a community as a whole. So, Dharma plays a role there also. Then, it is the primary duty of a king to uphold the Dharma. We all know Yata Raja, Tata Praja. So, unless the king himself is following the Dharma and he is righteous, you cannot expect the citizens to obey. So, the king has to be very clear about his dharmic duty, and he has to be correct while acting. Okay, and this has to be remembered importantly. King is never the lawmaker, but he is an authority to enforce law. So when you have to enforce law, what needs to be done is, first of all, you should practice it yourself. Without practicing, if you just preach, nobody will accept it and nobody will follow it again. So therefore, the king has to uphold the Dharma, and he has to remember that he is not the lawmaker, but just an authority to enforce law. Now, if we take any of the Smritis across ancient Indian literature, the subject matter is basically divided into 3: Achara, Vyavahara, and Prayashchitta. Now, Achara and Prayashchitta, they go hand in hand. They deal with the religious observances and the expiation rites. That is, you should fast on Ekadashi, or you should do this particular thing, do Sandhya Vandana, whatever. So these are all the acharas that have been prescribed for a member of the Aryan community. So if a person fails to do this, what is the Prayashchitta that needs to be done? So that is covered in the Prayashchitta part of the Smriti text. So this is about Achara and Prayashchitta. These are basically religious observances. Then Vyavahara is the main subject matter that we are concerned with now. Vyavahara deals with the actual law, the civil law. How the what happens if somebody is committed a crime, so how the case is dealt with, what is the punishment, and so on and so forth. So all the aspects of law, the jurisprudence, the legal jurisprudence is being covered under the Vyavahara part of the Smriti. Now, what we find time and again in the ancient history of Indian literature is that there have been a lot of texts on Smriti. The increase in the number of texts, it only shows the importance that was given for the subject matter. See, unless the matter is really important, people will not take time to write it again and again. Especially when somebody is already written, what is the need to again write the same topic? So, the lot of importance was given for the subject itself. Also, there was a willingness to accommodate the changes as and when it was required by the contemporary society. Now, the social aspects are very different from say 40 years before. What was accepted as a social norm has changed a lot today. Today we are a lot more lenient on certain things. So when in 40 years, if we can see so much of a change, just imagine what would have happened across hundreds of years. So between various centuries, people found there was a need, there was a compelling need to change certain aspects that have been mentioned in the Smriti. So that was willingly done, and so we have many number of texts for Smriti. Now, this is about the general description about details about Smriti. Moving on to Yajnavalkya, the date and the other details of this particular text. I have only mentioned points so that it's easier for us to remember, and then you can elaborate on it when answering. Okay, Yajnavalkya, we are familiar with the name. It is mentioned that he was the disciple of Vaishampayana, but he earned the displeasure of his guru, and then the guru cursed him that he will forget everything, and he vomited whatever he learned. So it is the same character here. So Yajnavalkya, one of the references is that he is the student of Vaishampayana. He is also credited to have promulgated the White Yajurveda, the Shukla Yajurveda. He is supposed to have promulgated. Then, apart from this Smriti, he is also credited with a work on Yoga Shastra called Yoga Yajnavalkya. He is also credited with an authorship of an Aranyaka, but the popular opinion is that they are not the same person. Depending on the based on the style of writing, people say that it may not be the same Yajnavalkya who's written the Smriti as well as the Aranyaka. This is a debatable topic. Then, as far as the date of Yajnavalkya is concerned, Vishwarupa is one of the main commentators, and his date has been established to be 9th century AD. So, since Vishwarupa is from 9th century AD, we obviously know that Yajnavalkya Smriti dates back before 9th century AD. This is one cross reference we have. Apart from that, Narada and Brihaspati, who lived during the 500 AD, they have recorded more advanced idea in their work. See, as I told you, Smriti, the concept, it keeps changing and they keep updating it from time together. So down the lane, when Narada and Brihaspati were able to mention an advanced fact in 500 AD, that simply means that Yajnavalkya Smriti must have been written even before that. So we know for sure that it was much before 500 AD. Then similarities can be found with Manusmriti and Kautilya's Arthashastra. So since we are more or less clear about Arthashastra's date, we can safely say that Yajnavalkya Smriti was composed somewhere between the 1st century BC and the 2nd century AD. So we have 3 points about the author and 3 points about the date of the author. So that is the basic details there. Then moving on to the style and the comparison with Manusmriti. YS is Yajnavalkya Smriti and MS is Manusmriti. Yajnavalkya Smriti and Manusmriti, they share the phraseology. Most of the places, the phrases that have been used in Manusmriti has been repeatedly found in Yajnavalkya Smriti. The style is very flowing and direct, and it is hardly obscure. It's a very simple text, very written in a very easy, understandable manner, and the entire text has been composed only in Anushtup meter. certain thoughts are more advanced than Manu. So we can safely say that Yajnavalkya Smriti was composed much later than Manu Smriti. Then coming on to the differences between the two. Manu has allowed a Brahmin to marry a Shudra girl, but Yajnavalkya does not do so. He is very clear. He says no, a Brahmin cannot marry a Shudra girl. Manu condemns Niyoga, while Yajnavalkya Smriti has allowed it. And Manu finds fault with gambling, but Yajnavalkya Smriti, he says it's still okay. As long as it is not destructive in nature, gambling is still fine. So these are the points for style and comparison with Manusmriti. As far as the book layout, if there is a short notes on Yajnavalkya Smriti, this is about the text, the detail about the text. It consists a total of 1010 verses, approximate figure. There are a total of 55 chapters, each divided, totally divided. The 55 chapters have been grouped under three parts. As I mentioned, Achara Adhyaya, Vyavahara Adhyaya, and Prayashchitta Adhyaya. These are the three basic divisions of the entire text, comprising of 55 chapters. Now, Achara Adhyaya, it deals with the customs, as I mentioned, the religious customs here. It has a total of 13 chapters. It deals with the 14 Vidyas, the samskaras from Garbhadana to marriage, the 4 classifications of the society, the avocations and duties of people who belong to the 4 classification of the society, the Varnashrama, the rules about prohibited and allowed foods and drinks. See, even this was mentioned in the Smriti. So even the food we eat, the drinks that we take, even that has to be according to Dharma Shastra. So much of importance was given for Dharma back then. Then purification of various materials, varieties of shraddhas and its elaborate procedure, propitiatory ceremonies for Vinayaka and the Navagrahas, and finally details about Raja Dharma. All these have been covered under Achara Adhyaya, which has 13 chapters. Then Vyavahara Adhyaya, which we are going to study now in the syllabus, has a total of 21 chapters. It deals with the proper civic laws. Now, how to run a judicial system, how to hear a case, what about the witness, what are the qualities of a witness, what about loan, how the loan has to be taken, what are the rules of repaying the loan, the interest, details about the partition, if there is a boundary dispute or dispute between the master and the servants or herdsmen, what happens in case there is a sale without the ownership or without the document, non-payment of wages, gambling, betting, abuse, defamation, slander, assault, theft, adultery, review of judgment, whatever case you can think of, anything that is legally fought in the court, you can mention here. So all this comes under the Vyavahara Adhyaya, which has 21 chapters. The Prayashchitta Adhyaya, it has 21 chapters again, and it deals with the nature. Yeah, it deals with the nature and the varieties of a shaucha, the rules of conduct and livelihood in case of distress. See, sometimes things will not be rosy at all times. So, in case there is some problem and we are not able to follow what is being told in the Dharma, so in case of distress, what needs to be done? What is the exception rules there? So, these things have been mentioned there. Then, rules for forest hermit, rules for a yati, the nature of Atman, immortality, heaven and hell, the philosophical aspects of it, various diseases that are caused due to sin. So what happens when you do a papa, when you don't act according to your duty, what is being told by the Dharma? If you don't do it, what sin gets attached to you? What is the purpose of Prayashchitta? The 5 mortal sins, 21 hells, expiation for murdering a Brahmin and cows. So even in those days, murdering a cow was considered as a big papa, and there were Prayashchitta also mentioned for it. Drinking wine, stealing gold, for being associated with sinners, the 10 yamas, niyamas, bratas, mahasantarpana, chandrayana, and reward for reading the Smriti. So this is the final thing he says. So what reward you get in case you read the entire Smriti. So all this has been mentioned in the Prayashchitta Adhyaya. Then the main commentators on Yajnavalkya Smriti are Vishwarupa. The commentary is called Balakrida. Then Vigneshwara is another commentator who has written Mitakshara. and Aparaditya has written Apararka. These are the three main commentaries written by the respective commentators. Then, this is about the general stuff about Yajnavalkya Smriti. Now, there can be individual questions about each of the prakarana. So, the first prakarana that we are going to see is the general rules of procedure. Sadharana Vyavahara Matrika Prakaranam. Sadharana Vyavahara Matrika Prakaranam. So there can be a short notes on Sadharana Vyavahara Matrika Prakaranam. So you can use the following points to elaborate that essay question. So here the general rules, not pertaining to any particular case, but the general rules of conduct have been mentioned in this particular section, in this prakarana. Now, this Sadharana Vyavahara Matrika Prakaranam, the rules mentioned here is not only for the king, but it is for anyone who is at the helm of the affairs of administration. So whoever is leading the administration at that point of time has to follow whatever has been mentioned here. Because the highest duty of a king is Dushta Nigraha and Sister Rakshana. So he has to punish the wicked and also protect the noble side by side. So he has to know what are all the punishable crimes and what is the suitable punishment in case of that particular crime. So he needs to know the basics of the Sadharana Vyavahara Matrika Prakarana. Then the king has to attend the administration of justice every day along with his counselors, because it says justice delayed is justice denied. So they cannot really delay justice. So the king has to attend to it on a regular basis, and it has to be done every day, and he always does it with a set of his counselors. Then Manu says that the wrong person should never be punished, and if something like that happens, if the king is responsible for punishing a wrong person, he gets great infamy and he himself can get a lot of sin because of this particular act. Hence, the king has to follow the tenets of Dharma Shastras very carefully before deciding the judgment, and follow it only according to what has been mentioned in the Dharma Shastra. He cannot do according to his whims and fancies or according to any favoritism. Then, the appointed counselors, they should have the required qualification, and they should also be proficient in the Dharma Shastra themselves. So it is not that the Dharma Shastra is read only by the king. Whoever is the counselor, even he should know the basics of Dharma Shastra. If the king is absent for some reason, he's gone on a tour or something, then the Brahmana presides over the case, or whatever the proceedings are happening, the legal proceedings. The Brahmana takes over and he will deliver the judgment. Then the chief judge is called the Prad Vivaka. Okay, Prad is basically the defender, the accused. So if I am giving a complaint against somebody else, so the other person is actually the Prad, and I am the plaintiff. Since I am giving the complaint, I am the plaintiff. The other person about whom I am complaining will be the defender, or he is called the Prad. The chief judge, what he does, he actually listens to all the arguments and he differentiates between what is consistent and what is inconsistent in the statements that has been told by the plaintiff and the defender. So therefore, he is called the Prad Vivaka. Then, if the verdict is not in line with the Dharma Shastra, then the judge and the counselors are liable for punishment with a fine. So they cannot take it easy. If somebody says, no, this is not according to Dharma Shastra, then they themselves are liable for punishment. So they have to be very careful. Then, Vyavahara is actually a judicial proceedings, and it has the following component parts. The first thing is the pratigna. Pratigna is basically the complaint, whatever I say, that this person has stolen my goods, whatever. So that is the pratigna. So that is the complaint basically that I am giving. What the other person, the defendant, he replies, that is the uttara. Now, there can be a doubt in the whole matter. So that is the samshaya part. Then I have to give a reason or hetu, why I am giving this particular complaint. So I am giving a reason for my complaint and my doubt on this particular person. Why I am suspecting him to be the culprit. So that will be the hetu or the reason. Then based on these arguments, there will be a paramarsha, or there will be a deduction based on these things. And finally, based on the pramana or the proof or evidence that is provided, the nirnaya or the decision will be taken, and the last step is the prayojana or reason. So just remember a few of these names. We can remember it in a proper order. First of all, the complaint is given, so that is pratigna. Then the uttara, the defendant gives the uttara. There can be a samshaya in this doubt. Then you have to give a proper reasoning for your complaint, that is the hetu. Then there will be a paramarsha, a deduction based on the facts that has been provided, which is confirmed by the evidence or the pramana. A nirnaya or decision is taken, and finally there is the prayojana or the reason. Then Vyavahara is of 18 types. There's a big list of all the types of cases that can come up in this particular section. It could be about recovery of debts or deposits, sale without ownership, concerns of the several partners, non-payment of wages, breach of contract, dispute between the owner and servants, boundary dispute, assault, slander, theft, adultery, duties of husband and wife, gambling, betting, and so on. Again, it's a general thing. We can just go on listing. Then there should not be any harassment or other inconvenience while summoning the defendant. So they have been very clear on this point. Nobody should be harassed to come to the court. A person with disease, a bala, a vriddha, one who is in some kind of a difficulty, one in religious duty, kriyakula, nripakaryatura, one who is engaged in the king's duty, one who is matta, intoxicated, unmatta, with lack of mental balance, pramatta, idiots, aggrieved or artha, young and helpless women, women who has recently delivered or a highborn woman. All these people cannot be summoned to the court of law. Remember this list. Then arrest can be made if the defendant is trying to run away. Otherwise, he should only be summoned. Arrest is only the next step. Only if he is trying to run away, then he can be arrested. Arrest is again of 4 kinds. Sthana seda, that is if the person is confined in a particular place. So confinement in a place, or it can be kalakrita, for a limited time. You tell him that for this particular time, till the case is over, 1 month or 2 months, you're not supposed to move from here. So it is a kalakrita. Or pravasat, his movements are restricted. He is not allowed to travel outside. Inside the city or the town, he is free, but he cannot travel outside. So movement are restricted. And karyat, you prohibit a particular set of actions. Tell him that he is not supposed to do this particular action. So arrest can be of any one of these 4 types. Then allegations and the reply both must be documented in writing. So whatever the plaintiff says, whatever the complaint that has been lodged, even that has to be documented, and whatever the reply the defendant gives, even that has to be documented. And while documenting, the particulars like names of both of them, the year, the month, the fortnight, the date, day, in case it is about money dealing, then the amount that has been specified, the quality, if it is an article, then the quality of the article, the place, time, and all other such details connected to the complaint should be mentioned very clearly while documenting. This is only done so that the person who is giving a complaint cannot change his version later. See, today he cannot say that that person owes me 500 rupees, and then tomorrow he can't say that no, he owes me 500 gold coins. So that thing can never be changed. Or he can't make 500 to 400 or 500 to 1000. So this thing cannot be changed. So the documentation has to be very clear, and it has to include all these details. There is something called Chatushpada Vyavahara. That is the 4 parts of a judicial proceeding. The first is the pratigna. As I told you, what is being told by the plaintiff, that is the pratigna, the complaint as such. The second is the uttara, or the reply of the defendant. Third is the sadhana, or the evidence by which the pratigna, by which the plaintiff is able to prove that the defendant is wrong. And lastly, it is the nirnaya, or the decision, which is being based on the arguments as well as the evidence. This is an important question. This is an often asked short notes. Chatushpada Vyavahara. So Chatushpada, 4 parts: pratigna, uttara, sadhana, and nirnaya. Easily you can remember. First is the person who gives the complaint. It's whatever he says, the complaint as such. The reply given by the defendant. Third is the evidence which has been provided to prove. Either way, both of them can provide evidence. The plaintiff can say that the other person is guilty. The defendant can say, no, I'm not guilty. So either way, they can provide the evidence. So based on the evidence provide, the decision, final decision or the nirnaya is taken. This is about Sadharana Matrika Prakaranam. Then, moving on to Asadharana Matrika Prakaranam, the special rules of procedure. This Prakarana is slightly lengthy, but again this has been asked. Given to the length, they may ask this question for a long essay. So here, specific rules of the of a legal proceeding or legal procedure has been mentioned. So what first of all here Yajnavalkya says is, when one complaint has been filed against a person, you cannot file another one against him or her till the case is disposed of. See, there is a person A who's filed a complaint against B. So another person C cannot make use of the same occasion, and he cannot come and say that yes, B also did this to me. So you cannot have another extra complaint filed against the same person before this case has been disposed of. So this is one of the main rules. Then, as I told you, the plaintiff cannot alter his version. No change in the subject matter or the nature of suit will be entertained. He cannot say that first it was only a civil matter, that this person only he robbed some money from me or he owes me this much, and then he cannot say no, he assaulted me on that day when I asked him for money. No, these things cannot be changed. Whatever needs to be told has to be told in the very first instance itself, and it has to be mentioned in the original complaint itself. There cannot be any change or alteration of the version of the plaintiff. Then, change in version in cases of assault or violence, then the case itself will get dismissed. See, what happens is he cannot say that he might have launched a complaint saying that the B hit him with his hand, and then after 2 or 3 days, if he comes and says that the B hit him with a rod, so that becomes a change in version. So if there is a change in version in cases of assault or violence, the case itself gets dismissed because there is no consistency in the version of the complainant. So the case itself will get dismissed. But in cases of disputes relating to cattle or women, land, or any other immovable property or recovery of debt, the case is not dismissed, but the plaintiff is liable for a punishment for changing the version. Okay. So only in cases of assault and violence, the case itself gets dismissed. But in all the other civil cases, it is told that the plaintiff will be punished. He will be asked to pay a fine or some other higher punishment also, depending on it. Most likely it is a fine. Okay. Then both the plaintiff and the defendant, they have to produce a surety. Surety is a pratibhu. We will read more about the pratibhu in later pages. But just remember that they have to produce a surety, a person who will assume responsibility for the plaintiff or for the defendant. That is, if the plaintiff, if the defendant has to be present on a particular day, then somebody else will have to come forward and say, it's okay, I will take the responsibility, I will see to it that he will come on that particular day. So that is a surety. Or if there is money dealing, we all know surety signatures. So to say that, okay, if somebody is taking a loan, then if somebody is becoming the surety, is actually becoming the surety there, that just means that if the person is not able to pay the loan, I will take the responsibility and see to it that the loan is repaid. So surety, the concept of surety existed even back then. If the defendant loses, then he pays what is due to the plaintiff and an equal amount of money to the king. Because when the plaintiff has lodged the complaint, the defendant would have first said no, what the plaintiff is saying is wrong, I didn't do so. So he would have first denied it. Since he first denied it and then it was proved that actually he is wrong, so he has to pay an equal amount of money to the king also. So he actually pays what is actually due to the plaintiff and an equal amount to the king. Then, if the plaintiff loses, then he will only pay that amount to the king. He need not pay the defendant because he is not owing the defendant anything. He is only trying to claim money from the defendant. So if he loses the case, he has to pay the amount to the king. Then, people who are not competent to be a complainant or a witness who cannot file a complaint, or they cannot be a witness. This list includes people like nomads, one who lick their lips, one whose foreheads perspire, one whose form becomes changed in color, one who stammers, inconsistent talk, one who's been born with mental deformity, etc. They cannot either file a complaint or come and present themselves as witnesses in some other case. Now, in case of gift, now this is another important point. In case of gift, Purvavadi is valid. That is, the earlier date or the one who got it first is valid. What happens is, two people may claim that it belongs to them, that it is a gift and it belongs to them. So in such cases, whoever is able to prove that they received it first in terms of date, then the judgment will be in favor of them. So the earlier date becomes valid in this particular case. Suppose the gifted property has been received by A. Somebody has given a gift to A. Then this gifted property has been purchased by another person B, or it has been purchased by the king and then given to another person C as gift. So the gift which was originally received by A is now in the hands of C. The C says it is his gift, but A says it is his gift. In between, there has been another transaction where someone else, either B or a king, they have purchased this property from A and then given it to C. Then this person A, or the first claimant, he has no right over it, because we have told that Purvavadi is valid. So we can logically say that A was the one who was having it before. C is only claiming it now. But it is not so, because in between there has been a transaction of purchase. So when there is a transaction of purchase in between two Vadis, the Purvavadi does not have any right over the gift. Then, if a wager is involved in a dispute, then the losing party shall pay the disputed amount plus the wager plus the fine to the king. This wager, I think it is something like a bet, to say that okay, if I win the case, I owe you so much. It's like something like that. Something that's basically a wager, a bet that is added along with the case. So this is apart from the actual amount that has been involved in the case. So if the wager is involved, the losing party, whoever is losing the case, will have to pay the actual amount that is being involved in the case, along with the fine that is due to the king, as well as the wager. So this wager is another extra inclusion in some cases. Then, of a set of complaints, if a false denial is proved against a defendant in at least one of the cases, then the defendant is made to admit all other complaints. Now, for example, there may be 3 or 4 complaints against a person, and that person, the B who is the defendant, he might deny all 4. And when A, who is the complainant or the plaintiff, he is able to provide evidence for at least any one of these 4 complaints, then what actually happens is benefit of doubt, because one has already proved that B is actually telling lies in this particular case, and it has been proved that he is denying it falsely. So by benefit of doubt, all the other 3 are put on his head. So then he is forced to admit to the other complaints also. So even if one is proved, all the other 4 will automatically come against the defendant. Then this is again an important thing. This we read in the Arthashastra also. Rules of the Dharma Shastra prevail over Arthashastra. So if there is a clash between the versions of Dharma Shastra and Arthashastra, the political science, what he says is Dharma Shastra will have an upper hand, so that will prevail over Arthashastra. Then the pramana or the evidence has to be written down by the plaintiff. Then the evidence can be again of 2 types. It can either be a human evidence, manava, or a divine evidence, that is divya. I don't know how divine evidences were actually accepted. I don't know how it was played, but this category is also there. So the plaintiff, before producing the evidence, he has to write down who the evidence is and whom he is going to present as the evidence.
Harini,
evidence, yeah.
Sir gave an example of a recent case. Recent means might not be very recent, but in the
Yeah.
past it has happened that there was a conflict whether the temple belonged to Shaivite or Vaishnavite or something like that. They closed the temple for some time, and after a week, when they opened, they saw Hanuman or something like that. So that
Yeah.
was considered as a
Supernatural, supernatural power. So that,
yes.
yeah, that can be taken as Divya. Yeah, very true.
Actually, if I could add, in coastal region, in Mangalore region, they
Yeah.
have this Bhuta Kolas.
Chocola, yeah.
Even now, people go for disputes. They go and present the case in front of the Daivam, which comes like.
Okay, okay.
So
Yeah,
that is,
that can be taken. Yeah, yeah, that didn't occur to me. Yeah, that's a very valid point. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, so that can be about Divya or the divine evidence. Then, human evidence is of three kinds. It can be written down, documented evidence. That is likhitam. It could be like a sale deed or something that which is documented and written down. So that is likhitam. Bhukti is possession. See, sometimes what happens, so land or a property or a house or something, it would have come down from generation. So the son or the grandson, even without a sale deed or anything, or the document of the house or the land, might have possessed the property, might be still using the property. So that also becomes a human evidence. That comes under the category of bhukti. So just possession for 3 generations is also enough to prove that it is theirs. Then the last is the sakshi or the human witness, a human being actually going to the court and presenting a witness. That is sakshi. So here in this case, what he says is the human evidence is always greater than a divine evidence. Only in case of absence or lack of human evidence, we resort to the divine evidence. Then written evidence, if both have it, then if both the defendant as well as the plaintiff, if both of them produce the written evidence, then in case of civil disputes regarding property, evidence in support of a later transaction prevails. That is, say suppose they are talking about a house. Both of them have papers to prove that it belongs to them. A says it is his, and he has a document saying that the house belongs to A. B says it is his, and he has a paper belonging to saying that it belongs to B. So here what they check is actually the date on the ownership deed or the paper that they are having. So here, whichever has a later date is what will stand in the court of law. Simple reason, because uh, A might have sold it to B and then he might again come and claim for the same property. So because of this, the one who has the written evidence with a later date will have a stand in case of civil disputes. Now, this differs in cases of pledge or a gift or a sale. As I mentioned earlier, in case of a gift also, it is always the evidence in support of an earlier claim that will prevail. So whoever received it first will have the claim. So a later date will not work in case of pledge, gift and sale. Then, if a person has not objected to another person enjoying his land for 20 years, then the former person, he loses his right over the property. If you have let somebody else to enjoy the property, the land or a house for 20 years at a stretch, then the original owner, he loses the right of claim to that particular property. In cases of animals like horse or elephant, this period is only 10 years. So if somebody else has been using your horse or elephant for 10 years, then it becomes theirs. You cannot claim it as yours. However, this loss of right over a particular period of time is not applicable in cases of pledges. In cases of pledges, whatever is the time that has been fixed earlier has to be followed. If the date is surpassed and it continues, even then, no matter how many years have passed, the person who has the pledge has to return the article to the rightful owner. So here the case of 20 years or 10 years will not come. See, because what happens is in some cases they will pledge cows or horses for money and they might go. Or in case the person is traveling, he might just pledge his animal because nobody is there to take care of the animal. So he might say, you just keep this with you, I will come back. So if the person is not able to come back, he's presumed dead or something happens, the owner will continue to enjoy the services of the animal. Now, if the pledge was originally meant only for 3 months and the owner himself comes back after 5 years, then the pledge has to be returned. The animal has to be returned, and the person cannot say, no, I have had it for 5 years, so it is mine. That will never work in case of a pledge. Then, see here, there are two things here. When we talk about a property, land or house, there are two things: title and possession. Title is the agama, possession is the bhukti. So there are two aspects to it. So what he says is, a title is always superior to possession. You cannot just simply accept that only because this person has been living here by possession, he becomes the owner. If somebody else has a paper or a document to prove that he is the owner, then the document or the title will have a higher value. So that is more greater and superior than just possession. Except when possession has been handed or descended down through a line of ancestors. If it is the 4th generation or more, then possession is superior even without the title. So suppose my grandson's grandson is still continuing to live in this house without any legal papers to support it, then since he is the 4th generation, the property is his only based on possession. So in that cases, the title is not needed. But in all cases, title has a superior hand. But there is another catch here for title also. What he says is, a title without a possession for even a short period is invalid. So whoever possesses the document to say that he is owning the land should have lived in that house or should have used that land for at least a short period. Only then he is actually taking possession of it. So only when the possession is there, the title itself will have value. Okay. So title with possession, highest value. Possession without title but beyond 4th generation is of a superior value. So these are two different aspects of title and possession or bhukti. Then there are certain invalid transactions that have been mentioned. That is, the transactions those done by force, or it has been brought forth by women at night, or it has been done with intoxicated persons or madman, or ones oppressed by disease, misery, frightened, and transactions against a servant without the permission of his master. So this is important. So if he's a servant under somebody, they have to take the permission to the master and only then get into a deal with the servant. All these are considered invalid because this may be done by force. They may not be in their proper stand of mind. So you never know. They may not have done it with full consciousness. So these things cannot be taken as valid transactions. Then, lost and recovered property, generally it goes to the king unless the claimant gives proper identification of it. Then, wealth recovered from the robbers shall be distributed to the people of the country. This is the duty of the king. This is about the Asadharana Matraka Prakaranam. Then, the next Prakarana is Rinadana Prakarana, or recovery of debts. Any doubts to here? Okay, I'll move on. Rinadana Prakaranam, or recovery of debts. Totally, there are 7 important points here. The first 5 is relating to the debtor. Debtor is the one who has taken the money, and the last 2 relate to the creditor, the one who has lent the money. He is the lender. Okay. As far as the debtor is concerned, the points to be noted are the kind of debt to be paid, the kind of debt not to be paid, by whom to be paid, at what particular time, and in what way it is to be paid. So just for easy remembrance, I have just made this in the bracket. What not, whom, when, and how. So these 5 points we need to remember from the perspective of a debtor. From the perspective of a creditor, it's only 2 things. Mode of advancing a loan and mode of recovery. There are only 2 things. So if somebody comes and asks me 1 lakh rupee, I have to think how I am going to give him the 1 lakh. So that is mode of advancing the loan, and having given the 1 lakh, how I am going to get it back. Mode of recovery. There are only 2 things for the creditor. Then interest against pledge. This is 1/80th part of the principal for a month. I have just mentioned whatever is there in this prakarana. Try to remember as much as you can and write it in the exam. I don't know if we will be able to remember all these figures, but just pointers I have just added here. So interest against pledge is 1/80th part. If the person who has pledged, he's going to travel through a forest or he is going to travel by sea, then the interest rate is slightly higher. What happens is if he's going to go through the forest, it's going to be 10%, and if it is overseas travel, it is 20% because of the high risk involved. The person may never come back. So the one who is lent, the creditor may be at a loss. So in order to cover that loss, they have hiked the interest rate in these two cases. Then all debtors will have to pay the interest irrespective of their varna. Interest is basically of four kinds. Kalika, this is the monthly interest. Karita, Karita is that which is fixed according to a mutual agreement between the lender and the debtor. Then Kayika, this is manual labor or slavery, what we generally see. So the person will say that I cannot repay by money, so I will work in your farm or in your house. So that is Kayika or manual labor. And lastly, Chakravriddhi, this is the compound interest. So it can either be monthly or it can be fixed. The time can be fixed by mutual agreement, or it can be manual labor or compound interest. These are the four kinds of interest. Then, if there is a pledge of female animals, for example, cow, if a cow has been pledged, then the calf or the progeny, the santati is the interest. That itself will be the interest. And during the period of pledge, the creditor can enjoy the milk as well as the labor from the female animal in that period of pledge. Then, maximum interest. This was also fixed so that people are not harassed by the interest rates. So what is told here is, if fluids are involved, in cases of fluids, 8 times of the quantity that is being pledged. If 1 liter of oil is being pledged, then 8 liters of oil is the maximum interest that can be counted or that can be charged for that particular amount. So for fluid it was 8 times. If it is cloth, then it is only 4 times. If it is grains, it is only 3 times. And for gold, it is 2 times. Here the logic basically is that which will perish sooner had higher interest, because the one who has the creditor here in this case who's actually taken the pledge, he cannot really make use of it for a longer time. It will perish, it will get lost, it will get the cloth can tear, it can be eaten by rats, whatever. So it can get destroyed. So because in such cases, in order to maintain his interest, maximum interest was charged. So 8 times for fluids, 4 times for cloths, 3 times for grain, and 2 times for gold. The 5 methods of loan recovery according to Manu. So this Manu's version has been mentioned in this in the book here. The first one is moral persuasion. You tell him that this is your dharma. You are having taken the money. You have the you are obligated to pay it back. So you try to persuade him morally by telling him about the dharma. If that does not work, then file a case against him, the suit of law, vyavahara. If both of these things don't work, then by chala or deceit, you can try to recover your loan. Or the fourth one is starvation. That is, you sit in front of the debtor's house and protest. You say, I'm going to fast until death. This is called acharitam, to persuade him to pay back the loan. Or the last one is by force or by bala. You bring people, threaten him, hit him, whatever, and try to recover your loan. Now, then the obligation of repaying the loan. If the loan was taken for maintaining the family, then the head of the family who took the loan should repay the loan anyway. But in case of his absence, in case he's dead or he's gone away from the house, whatever, he's taken the loan and then he has disappeared. So if he is not there to pay, then the other family members should repay the loan. Should repay. Then, if the loan was taken for any other purpose, then the woman is not liable to repay. By any other purpose here, it is not for the maintenance of the family. He could have taken it for drinking or gambling or something else, for his own enjoyment. Then the woman of the house is not liable to repay. The woman, as in a daughter or a wife or a mother, in either of these cases, The woman is not liable to repay the loan taken by her father or husband or son, because it was not taken for the purpose of maintaining the family. So she has no liability to repay the loan. Then, if the loan was taken by the woman, by her, or it was agreed by her when her husband received it, then she is liable to pay. So if she is party to the loan, then she has to pay. Otherwise, she has no liability to pay. Then, there are, in case of loan, the guarantee given to the creditor is of two kinds. One is pratibhu, that is surety, and the other is adhi, or the pledge. So suppose I am taking 1 lakh rupee, I will say that, okay, you can have this particular item, I am giving you this much of gold, you please give me money in return for this gold. I will come back and I will pay the money and I will take the gold back. So that is the pledge, basically what we are doing. So that. Or there can be a surety where another person comes and says, don't worry, you give him the money, I will take care, I will ensure that this is repaid. So this is the guarantee that is given to the creditor. The creditor receives this guarantee. So it can be in the form of a surety or it can be a pledge. Pratibhavyam is the law of suretyship. What happens, what are all the rules which govern the pratibhu or the surety? Surety or pratibhu, as I said, is a contract with another person to bring about confidence. There, 3 types of surety is accepted. One, for darshana or appearance. As I told you, if the defendant has to be present on this particular day in future, for this case, he has to come on, say, the 25th of August, then another person can come and say, don't worry, it is my duty, I will ensure that he will be present on that particular day. So this is darshana or appearance, the surety given for darshana. Or there can be an assurance or pratyaya to say that don't worry, he will repay this loan. I am there to see to it that he repays it. So it's an assurance that is given. So that is also another type of surety. Or for the actual payment itself, the person gives surety. If he doesn't pay, I will pay instead of him. So don't worry, I am there. So that kind of a surety is actually called dana. So pratibhu can be for darshana, for pratyaya, or for dana. 3 types under surety. If the surety person dies, then his son is liable to pay in case of dana. That is, if the person becomes the surety, he says that I will make sure that the payment is done, and the surety person dies, then his son has to pay that amount of money because the father has signed surety. So he has to take that place and he has to pay the amount. Now, if it is not dana and it is darshana or pratyaya, then the son does not become liable. The son is liable only in cases of payment or dana. Then, if there are 2 or more sureties, then the amount is equally divided amongst them and it is being paid. Then, the person who has given surety will also receive money or some article from the debtor. This is like kind of a thanksgiving. So the person who has received the help, he actually gives him back some money or some article to the surety because he has helped him. Then, moving on to adi or law of pledges. Pledge is something that is hypothecated to the creditor. See, suppose if you buy a van from that is being financed by a bank, so we generally write it is hypothecated to the bank till the loan has been cleared. We will write it is hypothecated to the bank. So the bank holds the what do you say, the ownership of the van till the loan has been repaid. So we are actually pledging that item to the creditor there. So this is hypothecation. So this is pledge. 2 kinds. There are 2 kinds of pledges. Pledge with a time limit, kritakala, and something that has no time limit, akritakala. There are 2 more ways of categorizing pledge. One that is gopya and bhogya. In case of gopya, only the custody is given. Say, maybe the person could have bundled up a few gold coins and said that just keep it with you till I'm back. I'll be back in a month's time, and he can go. So the person who is receiving the pledge cannot make use of the gold coin. He's only supposed to safeguard it. So that is only custody, gopya. But on the other hand, if he were to leave a cow or something like that, a horse or something, the person who is receiving the pledge can enjoy that also. He can take the milk, he can make use of the horse for labor, etc. So bhogya, he can enjoy the services of the pledge also if it is an animal in that case. So Gopya and Bhogya are two categories. Now, Bhogya has no expiry date. Bhogya can continue as long as it is there. If there is no expiry date, till the person actually comes and claims, it can continue. On other Kritakala pledges will expire at the end of the stipulated period and will become the lender's own. So if I have given some article to another person and said that this will be with you for 3 months, I'm pledging it to you for 3 months, at the end of 3 months that article is again mine. The person with whom I have pledged, he has to definitely return the property. If the creditor does not return the property, then he is considered as a thief. Beyond the stipulated period, the creditor cannot continue to enjoy the article of pledge. He has to legally hand it over to the rightful owner. Now, pledge is mainly for the interest component. Then what happens is the person might have given say 1 lakh rupee or whatever. So whatever the article he's pledging, the debtor is giving, that pledge article is only made use for the interest that comes on the 1 lakh. Okay, it's not for the principal. So the debtor can pay the principal and take back the pledge items. Suppose he is pledged a cow and he has taken 10,000 rupees. At the end of 3 months, he can pay the 10,000 back and take the cow and go. That is to say, the interest for the 3 months has been fulfilled by the cow. The cow would have given him milk. It would have given him a lot of. It would have helped him with the labor, etc. So that covers the interest component of it. So he is only liable to pay the principal amount and take back the pledge. Now, if the pledge has gone beyond the time and the profit has increased, exceeded the interest. Beyond the stipulated period, whatever, as I told you, the pledge is only to cover the interest part. So, if the pledge has gone beyond the stipulated period and whatever the person is receiving is much more than the actual interest, then the creditor has to pay that excess amount to the debtor. He cannot say, just because you left it with me, I am enjoying it. No. Whatever is rightfully his due is what the creditor can enjoy. He cannot make use of the excess. Okay. Then, if on the contrary, if the interest component is not totally covered, say the cow did not give as much milk that was expected out of it, so the interest was not covered, then the debtor has to pay the remaining amount along with the principal and take back the pledge. So, basic point to be remembered here is pledge is only for the interest component. So, if the interest has been nullified with the pledge itself, then he can only pay back the principal and take back the pledge. If the pledge is given more interest, more profit, beyond the interest it is given more money, then that excess amount has to be returned to the debtor. If it is less, then the debtor is liable to pay the difference and only then take back the pledge. This is about pledge. Then, couple of things before we wind up for today, because with this we will be finishing the basics. Then we will go into the quotations. Quotations, I think we will take it up in the next session. The next one is Upanidhi Prakaranam, or the law of deposits. What is Upanidhi? When something is undisclosed, that which is not told in the open, it is secretly placed in a container without giving any description of the quantity or quality, and it is given to a person, then it is called Upanidhi. So it's basically a deposit that is being given, but no, the person who is receiving the deposit does not know what the item is, what the quality or the quantity of the item is. It is given in a sealed container. The person has to return the same thing in the very same way. He has to make sure that the seal is still intact. He cannot open and see what is there inside. So this is an Upanidhi. Upanidhi where it is not disclosed. We don't know what the item is. But if the deposit is described, if the person says, I'm giving you this much, this is what is there in the box. If it is described, then it is called Nikshepa. These two terms that we need to remember here. As I mentioned, whether it is a Nikshepa or an Upanidhi, it has to be returned with the seal intact. If the deposit has been stolen or taken away by the king before it was claimed by the owner. See, I might give a deposit to somebody, 1 month later I might come and I might claim. If the deposit that I have given was stolen before I actually go and claim, then the person, the creditor who has received the deposit need not pay the debtor or the person who has given the deposit. He is not liable to pay because it was an accident which happened even before the claim was placed. But in some cases, if the creditor is greedy, once the person comes back and asks, give me my money back, then he might come up with a story saying that, then he might say, okay, let tomorrow you come, I will give you. And in the meanwhile, he might come up with a story saying that, no, I was getting it ready for you last night, but it was stolen. So if it was stolen after the original depositor asks for it, then the depository has to definitely pay up. He cannot give such stories. So because it was already asked and then he is saying that it has been stolen, he has to definitely pay. Here, I think even if the actual stealing happened before, if he has not voiced it, then he loses claim. He cannot say that, no, it was stolen last month itself, but I didn't tell you. That will not work here. If it is stolen, he should have reported it then itself. So the stealing or not stealing is only before the person who has given the deposit, before he claims or after he claims. This is the only condition there. So if it is before the claiming, then he is not liable to pay. If it is after the claiming, then he has to definitely pay. The creditor definitely has to pay the person who has deposited the article or the amount. Then, Sakshi Prakaranam, a few points about the witness. We saw that evidences are of three kinds. Likitam, that is the document, Bhukti, possession, and Sakshi, the witness. Witness is actually the one who has actually seen or heard the thing. So witness may be appointed or unappointed. Appointed, the plaintiff or the defendant can say that no, I have a defendant on my side, and I have a witness on my side, and they can actually appoint, saying that no, he will be my witness on my side. So it can be said before. Or an unappointed witness is someone who might voluntarily they might just be listening to the case, and then they might just come in between and say no, I was there that day. This is what happened. So this is a voluntary witness. This is neither brought by the plaintiff nor by the defendant. So that could be a voluntary witness who is unappointed. So basically two types. Characters of a competent witness. Again, he has to be a tapaswin, dana shila, pulina, satyavadi, dharma pradana, putravan, dhananvita. That is basically of all good qualities. Generally, the number of witnesses should not be less than 3. But with mutual consent, sometimes even one witness is enough. If both the plaintiff and the defendant agree, sometimes there can be even one witness can be there. But general rule is that it should not be less than 3. Now, the witness, he must be sworn in. That in the court of law, what we see in all the serials and cinemas, I swear on Bhagavad Gita, whatever. So he has to be sworn in. He has to be told the effects of giving a false witness. He has to be clearly explained that if you give a false witness, you will go to hell. This is what will happen to you. You will accrue sins. All these things have to be explained to him even before he presents the witness. Then, if a person, an appointed witness in this case, he has first agreed to give witness, and then fails to do so, he doesn't turn up, then he is liable for punishment. Then, if the witness has been proved wrong, then the judgment gets cancelled. Somebody might just come, he might say that he is the witness, he might provide a witness, whatever, and then based on that particular witness, the judgment may have been delivered. But at a later date, when the witness has been proved wrong, then the original judgment also gets cancelled and the case gets reviewed again. Then, person providing a false witness or he hides the truth after receiving a bribe, then he is punishable severely. This is about witness. Then the last one here is Lekhya Prakaranam, or about documents. Documents are mainly of two types. One is Shasana, or the royal grant, and the other one is Janapada, that which is executed among normal citizens, civil document and all these things. Then Janapada again is of two parts. One that is written in one's own handwriting, and the other that is being written by someone else. The person, the owner of the property may be illiterate, so he might take the help of some other person to write down the property, just like we hire a lawyer's help to write down documents. Similarly, another person may be employed to actually write the document. So it is two depending on who has written the document. Now, here the book says the second category requires attestation. So this is the first point is about Shasana, the second point is about Janapada, and he says the second category requires attestation. So I am not sure if Janapada, both the categories of Janapada require attestation, or only the second category of Janapada, that is one written in someone else's handwriting. Whether that requires attestation, I don't know. The book only says second category requires attestation. Divya, if there is anything that you can add from the Kannada book later, maybe you can just check and you can let me know. It is in the Lekya. Yeah. Then, monetary transaction agreed by a contract by mutual consent should be documented. Then again here we have seen this already. Mentioning of the name of the creditor, the year, month, fortnight, day, etc. All the other details should be written down properly. The debtor shall sign at the bottom saying that he has agreed to the contract. These words should be mentioned. He has studied it, or it has been explained to him, and he has understood, and he has agreed to the contract. So this has to be clearly mentioned. Then here again, even for documentation, equal number of witnesses for both the creditor and the debtor should witness it. Then, if the document is written by the debtor, then witness becomes optional. Only in that case the witness becomes optional. But if it is some third person who's sitting and writing it, then equal number of witnesses on both sides are needed. Then the debt is repayable only till 3 generations. So if I have taken money today, if I have taken a loan today, then that is to be repaid by me after my death, by my child, and then my grandchild. So it is only up to 3 generations. The 4th generation is not liable. They become free. So the 4th generation will not be asked to repay that particular loan. But in cases of pledge, it can be enjoyed by the creditor as long as it has not been paid off. See, as we told you that the repayment of the principal, the interest and all that in pledge, whatever we discussed. So if it is not being paid off for even 4 or 5 generations, that pledge can be enjoyed by the creditor and his family and his descendants. So there is no time fixed time period for pledge. Then the debtor shall note down all the installments that have been paid on the backside of the contract, and it has to be signed by the creditor. Time and again, the debtor may repay small installments of money. So whatever has been repaid, that has to be clearly noted down behind on the document, and it has to be signed by the creditor also. At the end of the contract period, they can either mention in the same document that this thing is over, this deal is over, it was paid off, and this thing stays unaltered. This is cancelled, this deal is cancelled. Or they can actually make a fresh document saying that this deal is over, the contract has expired. So this has to be prepared stating the expiry of contract. A fresh document has to be prepared. Now, while preparing the fresh document, the same witness who were present at the time of the initial contract should be present at the time of redemption. Because if there is a pledge or something, so whoever were present at the time of the initial transaction, so they must be there to ensure that the article is returned and this expiry of contract, this document is again done. So the witnesses shall be present at the time of redemption also. So with this we come to an end of the basics of Yajnavalkya Smriti. Was it okay? Was the session okay?
Yeah, it was very good. Concise. Everything seems so logical. It's like, yeah, I know types, but I don't know how I will remember.
It is very easy to remember because we are fluent with most of these things, because this is what we are seeing even today. It's actually surprising that even way back they have thought of so many things, especially the minute details that have gone into the witnesses and the documentation and other things. Today, all of us are familiar with signing a document, buying a house and all these things. So these things have existed from so long. I mean, that was really it was like a new revelation to me that so much of details were covered back in those times.
Yeah. Search for reason in your document REASON.
Sorry?
In your document, search for reason. Somewhere you mentioned as hetu, prayojana, and all that. So
Yeah.
in your document, search for REA, in reason.
Yeah, I remember I mentioned it in the first,
Can you do Control F? Control F.
no, I remember where it is. Wait.
Hetu is what? Prayojana is what? Oh, the purpose. In that context, it's called reason, is it?
Yeah. It was very purposeful. Now, based on the decision, whatever happens, like, okay, so this decision has been made, so this person has to return this amount of money. So the final transaction or whatever happens, or either the decision has been made and the person is not liable to pay. So that I think is the prayojana. So what comes out of it?
Like motive, purpose, something like that. Because earlier also hetu also you have given as
Sorry.
reason.
Now, the book had the same reason for both places. Even I was getting confused, but I didn't realize it was reason in both cases. Maybe we can say this as purpose, not reason.
So it is more of what was the motive, what was the reason. Okay, motive also has that kind of a reason behind it, but here
Exactly.
it is, yeah, motive.
Not reason as in cause, but reason as in motive. Yeah.
Okay, and so we will continue next week, Monday.
Yeah. Monday we finish with quotations. Then we will be done with this whole thing. Yeah.
All right, I'll stop broadcast.